Good morning, everyone. Pinch hitting for the chairman. We're going to call the May meeting of Bridges and Tunnels to order. Do we have any public speakers? Okay, Mr. Bowden.
Good morning. I have only one request, that you all speak into the microphone because your system isn't working great today. The last Port Authority meeting, I have had some issues with John Degnan, and a meeting was arranged between me and John and his chief of staff about a week and a half ago. We sat down for an hour and we discussed things friendly. We disagree, but that's okay. It was a friendly conversation. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Albany with Bill Finch, the executive director of the New York State Thruway, and we had a meeting for an hour in his car with his director of emergency services. We drove around looking at issues that I've had, and Bill said, "Is that what you mean? We did that? Why are we doing that?" And I found out that the way to solve all these problems I've been having for years is to go out there with somebody and look at it on the ground. And Tim, since we're going to meet, I would like the meeting to be in one of your vehicles, and we'll drive around and look at those points. And then you'll say, "We're doing that?" I just spoke to Mitch, and Mitch and I have been discussing a number of issues, and Mitch and I are going to, as soon as he can free up some time, stand on a corner and look at a couple of issues that I talked about earlier this morning. And in particular, crossing lights. Why we're still using crossing lights that were designed 75 years ago when traffic lights should be used today. Because you use them on a Willis Avenue bridge, you get gates and traffic lights. The Hutchinson River Parkway, you've got gates and traffic lights. And nobody is willing to say, why do we have red flashing lights and traffic lights on the same gantry? So, working with Bridge and Tunnel and a number of people, it's been good. You got good people working here, and they listen, and they do things that are correct for the future. They're willing to make changes that other agencies are not willing to make, and you've got a lot of good people working for you. So I look forward to sitting down with you and seeing if we can create some new directions and some new ideas that will make the area safer. Thank you.
Thank you. The end of the public comments. I have the minutes from the April meeting. Are there any changes to the April meeting minutes? If not, motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Okay. Committee work plan, is there any change to the work plan?
No changes to the committee work plan.
Okay. You want to start off? Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. As most of you know, we converted two more of our facilities, the Marine Parkway Gil Hodges Memorial Bridge and the Cross Bay Veterans Memorial Bridge, to cashless open road tolling on April 30th, as scheduled. And the response from our customers and the communities that are uniquely served by those facilities has been very positive. The next facility to go live will be the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge early this summer. I would also like to highlight one of the many duties performed by our facilities personnel. Pat Parisi will report later on the statistics from the Customer Environment Survey for the first quarter that include numbers relating to the assistance of our customers in the plaza or anywhere on our property. But often there's a story behind those numbers, as there was in late April at the Queens Midtown Tunnel when personnel responded to a stopped vehicle. Upon approaching, interviewing, and engaging the driver, it appeared that the driver was disoriented, and after checking the license plate number, it was discovered that the driver had been missing days before, reported missing from another state. Because of their timely action, the driver was transported to care and safely reunited with their family. And I commend our employees for their continuing vigilance and caring efforts. And now for the operating report.
Thank you. The report on operations begins on page 20. Traffic was lower in March with 24.6 million crossings as compared with 25.7 million crossings in March 2016. This represents a 4.3% decrease. Easy Pass volume decreased by 2.1% in March 2017 as compared to March 2016, while crossings using cash and other payment methods declined 18.1% for the month. Similarly, in March 2016, passenger car travel was down 4.3%, and other vehicle travel decreased by 4.2%. A contributing factor to this decrease was March 14th's winter storm Stella. This storm brought 7.4 inches of snow, an 82% reduction in traffic for that day. Total snowfall for March 2017 was 9.8 inches as compared to snowfall in March 2016 of only 1.8 inches. The preliminary monthly traffic figures for April 2017 shows a 0.5% decrease, or less than the same period than last year. As noted earlier, both the Marine Parkway Bridge and the Cross Bay Bridges started cashless tolling on April 30th. This ends the report on operations.
Any questions on operations? It'll be interesting to see whether we have the same effect at the RFK that we've had at the other places. The RFK is a little bigger and a little more diverse and a little more constrained, for lack of a better term, so it will be very interesting to see whether we have the same impact. We can only hope so.
Yeah, and a much more complicated layout.
Right. Much more complicated, yes, yes. Next.
Okay, the customer environment survey.
Go ahead.
The customer environment survey begins on page 33, and some highlights for the first quarter are: bridges and tunnels striped 68,327 linear feet of roadway in the first quarter of 2017, as compared to the 5,652 linear feet striped in 2016. Favorable weather conditions during the early part of the first quarter allowed us to get a fast start on our 2017 program. B&T repaired 1,109 potholes in the first quarter of 2017 as compared to 2,069 repaired in the first quarter of 2016. Fewer freeze-thaw cycles led to the reduction this year. B&T swept 3,033 miles of roadway at its bridges and tunnels in the first quarter of 2017 as compared to 3,287 miles swept in the first quarter of 2016. 91.5% of bridge and tunnels roadway lights, aviation lights, navigation lights, and necklace lights were operational in the first quarter of 2017, above the 89.2% result for the first quarter in 2016. B&T maintained and cleaned 155 storm drains in the first quarter of 2017 as compared to 342 completed in the first quarter of 2016. Projects such as the upper-level deck replacement at the Verrazano Bridge have replaced over 266 drains with new and wider 8-inch outlet drains that require less maintenance now. A new metric included in the Customer Environment Survey for 2017 is roadway assistance provided by Bridge and Tunnel Wreckers and Patrols. Bridges and Tunnels provides roadway assistance to 2,105 customers during the first quarter of 2017, with nearly 67% of the responses being for disabled vehicles. Another metric included in the Customer Environment Survey in 2017 is the progress of our conversion of more than 8,000 roadway aviation, navigation, and necklace lights to LED. To date, 29% of these 8,000 lights have been converted to LED. Easy Pass toll lane availability remained extremely high at over 99.97% for the first quarter, and our newly installed cashless ORT system availability was at 100% for the first quarter. Travel time for the first quarter at the cashless ORT facilities, HLC Tunnel, Queens Midtown Tunnel, and the Henry Hudson Bridge have shown significant improvements of between 10 and 20% as compared to pre-cashless ORT travel times. On April 30th, the Marine Parkway Bridge and the Cross Bay Bridge were brought online as cashless ORT facilities, as previously stated, with traffic moving well. We will continue to collect data and include the results in the second quarter report. During the first quarter of 2017, the collision rate per million vehicles was 6.87 as compared to the 5.95 for the first quarter of 2016. And the collision with injuries rate per million vehicles was 0.92 as compared to 0.89 for the first quarter of 2016. As discussed at the last committee, it was requested more on rear-end collisions and percentages. So more than 55% of the collisions were rear-end collisions, as compared to 50% in the first quarter of 2016. Following too closely and driver inattention were attributed to 90% of the rear-end collisions. The rear-end collisions were evenly dispersed throughout the day, with the PM peak period, 3P to 7P, slightly higher at 32%. The Verrazano Bridge accounted for more than 34% of the rear-end collisions in the first quarter. At this time, Eric Osnes will continue with more collision data for the month.
The report on safety is illustrated on page 45, in which we continue to highlight our most important lagging and leading indicators shown on the top and bottom tables. The report includes 12-month rolling averages of the following performance indicators. The 12-month rolling average customer collision rate for this reporting period increased from 7.74 in February 2017 to 7.78 from March of 2017. This trend is higher from the March 2016 rate of 6.23. Also, the rate for collisions with injuries increased from 0.73 in February 2017 to 1.09 for March 2017. This is higher as compared to the customer injury rate of 1.02 in March of 2016. I want to report that previously reported January and February collision with injury rates have been corrected due to a misapplication of the definition. Collision with injuries are when customers are transported from our facilities for medical attention. This correction revises the January collision with injury down to 1.0 from the reported 1.12, and February's rate down to 0.73 from the reported 1.14. At this time, Dan DiCrescenzo will continue the customer environmental survey by providing an update on deployments and enforcement efforts with regard to customer safety.
Thank you, Eric. As I stated in last month's committee meeting, one of the Bridges and Tunnels strategies in collision reduction is targeted enforcement based on the collision data. In May, we launched a formal process of providing descriptive collision data to our Special Operations Division for strategic deployment of our highway units to target speeding and other unsafe driver behaviors for greater enforcement. Special Operations is also reviewing the collision data on a daily basis, redeploying or splitting the deployment of the highway units' resources if needed to address immediate situational needs and priorities. These combined efforts are specifically geared toward unsafe driver behaviors, which is the cause of many of these collisions. Summonses totals targeting this unsafe driver behavior, written by Bridge Tunnel officers in 2017 for April year to date. So far, we have written 1,615 speeding summonses. The year-to-date speeding summonses remain below last year's levels due to the redeployment of our highway units to conduct persistent toll violator enforcement at our 2 tunnels during January and February of this year. Speeding summonses for March, we wrote 516 compared to 625 in March 2016, and 564 speeding summonses in April compared to 704 in April 2016. Another unsafe summons being issued, or summonses being issued, is the disobey traffic control device summons. We have written 2,657 summonses. This is a 43.2% increase for the same period of 2016, including 757 summonses for disobey traffic control devices in March of 2017 compared to 519 in the same month of last year. We also have written 372 unsafe lane changes. That's up 7.8% for the same period last year, including 132 in March 2017 compared to 112 in March of 2016. 643 cell phone or electronic device use summonses have been written to date. Also, that's a 22% increase from the same period in 2016, including 202 in March 2017 compared to 106 in March of 2016. Year to date, collectively, these 4 summons categories are up 18.8% when compared through May of 2016. Through April 2017 versus January to April 2016, we have seen an increase of 26.4% of total summonses issued and a 19.1% increase in arrests by our officers. In addition, MTA Bridges and Tunnels has taken additional steps regarding our collision reduction and safety plan. We improved communication between our departments and Bridges and Tunnels. We have formalized each command's monthly collision task force meeting. These task force meetings at each facility bring together the facility directors along with their facility management team. We have representatives from different departments such as maintenance and engineering, and we bring our highway units into those meetings, and they discuss specifically the collision data for that command or that facility. We also have what's called Acrobat, Achieving Collision Reductions on Bridges and Tunnels. I have to think about that. And that is a quarterly meeting. It used to be twice a year, but now we do it quarterly. And it's similar to the NYPD traffic stat meetings, if you're familiar with that, where we bring all the departments in, all the facilities in, and we have a collective discussion on the accident data for the quarter that just passed. So we just had our first Acrobat meeting in May for the first quarter of 2017, and it's as we go through the meeting, we discuss lessons learned at each facilities. We also speak about each stakeholder's role in accident reduction, and we identify the best practices in these meetings. Bridges and Tunnels will continue to analyze and identify the new trends based on collision data to properly deploy our resources and be proactive in our action safety planning.
Okay, that ends the report on the customer environment survey. Any questions?
Andrew, you had a question?
Yes, on the collision charts, are these just those for which a police report has been filed? I mean, this doesn't reflect minor fender benders or anything like that, correct?
Unfortunately, most people at this time request a report is done, so it probably...
It's just for the MV 104 ANs or the city report.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Do you think it's going to be very interesting to see on the safety report, especially the rear end collision report, whether or not the open road tolling, or when the open road tolling has an impact on that, because we would assume, human nature being what it is, that the movement of people across lanes as they approach the toll booths will now be, if not eliminated, at least significantly reduced, because anyone will no longer have to be in a specific lane for a specific purpose. So that's going to be the interesting component going forward, is how are your numbers on regular tolling areas going to be impacted by open road tolling, both at that facility and at other facilities moving forward?
To that point, now at several facilities, the road gets much wider to accommodate all of the various toll types, cash, easy
Right.
net, all of that. Are those being narrowed now so
Yeah.
that also would reduce what you're describing?
That's what we are hoping, because in reality, the toll booth becomes a component of the highway. It's no longer a toll booth because it doesn't go from 3 lanes to 12 lanes to 3 lanes. It's 3 lanes to 3 lanes to 3 lanes, which means people no longer have to do whatever it is people do. And we've all seen people do strange things at the toll booths, which cause anxiety, if not also an accident.
There's no reduction in speed going through these toll facilities, correct? So you just go through the same speed you were at.
Correct. And that's going to be an interesting part as to whether or not your speed limit tickets are going to go up now because of that, because people seeing that they no longer have to slow down, which they had to do at the toll booth, are now going, what speed are they now going to use to go through the gantry? Unknowns.
Especially off-peak times. Yeah.
Especially off-peak times, late at night, whatever it is in that context. Let me ask one other question on the issue of the taking away the toll booth and the increased speed that people go through the bridge or tunnel at, not only impacts our facility, it impacts what is past our facility, okay? Whether they go, wherever they're going. Now, if my recollection is correct, and somebody will clearly correct me if I'm not, the Queens Midtown Tunnel going westbound into the city is the only place after one of our facilities where there is a traffic light.
Brooklyn Battery Tunnel has a light at Trinity.
I haven't been there in a long time, but I know the Queens Midtown.
But that's
okay.
But
that, so what impact, if any, is the increased frequency by which people are getting through the Queens Midtown Tunnel, because we know they're going faster. How much faster is, but they're going faster, having on the traffic light situation west where everybody has to stop?
For the Queens Midtown Tunnel, we work with the traffic agents for NYPD, along with our officers. And from the very beginning, we either there's a traffic agent at those lights, bringing the traffic through if need be, or one of our officers. So we saw that that was a condition that we had to remedy right away, because exactly what you're saying, we said the same thing, they're going to get there faster.
And then what?
And then what?
Right.
So we're pushing them through the lights, and in some cases, the traffic agent's actually fanning out more into the city streets while our officers are pulling traffic off our property.
So we have not yet seen a significant backup into the tunnel?
No, not yet. Not yet. During the rush hours, we have the agents and we have our officers there.
We're getting still, during peak period, 16% increase in improvement in travel time.
Right.
People are seeing, even with the light issue.
Even with the light issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have the same light configuration. Excuse me. We have the same light configuration across Bay Bridge, and there we're working with DOT proactively change the timing of that light so that we don't, increase the just the weight at the light.
Well, because people are going to get. They're going to be saying, oh, this is great, now I can do 60, 65 miles an hour, regardless of what the speed limit is. We know what they do. And then all of a sudden they get the light, and then they get frustrated again. And being able to coordinate the two is going to be essential for ongoing situation. And all of these, and even in places where they go into a highway, if the highway stops, we've accomplished something, but not a lot in that regard.
But to Mitch's point, in the case of the Queens Midtown, should signs be installed notifying people that the speed limit is about to change once you are off the highway and on city streets? I mean, is there anything to let people know what the speed limit is on a Manhattan street versus what it was on the Long Island Expressway entering the Midtown Tunnel?
The speed limits are posted as people driving from the Long Island Expressway into the tunnel. If we have two-way traffic, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. As they exit the tunnel on the Manhattan side, it's also posted to match with the local speed limit on local streets.
That's on the Queens side of the tunnel, or as you exit on the Manhattan side?
It's on both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything further on safety, or have we covered that also?
Last half of the safety report.
Go ahead.
The employee lost time injury rate increased from 6.6 February 2017 to 7.5 in March 2017. This is higher than the March 2016 rate of 4.9. We experienced a significant increase in the month of March, where a large portion of total lost time injuries for this month can be attributed to weather-related events specific to Winter Storm Stella. A melt coupled with a refreeze produced conditions along paths of travel causing falls. That's the end of the safety report.
Any questions on that? If not, okay, Easy Pass.
Good morning. The March Easy Pass report begins on page 47. Our Easy Pass market share continues to increase from prior months, now 88.2% in March, which is the highest one-month market share ever, and 2% higher than the year before. Average weekday market share growth at the tunnels where marketing efforts have been targeted for ORT increased 3.5% over the prior year. The market shares for the HCT and the QMT were 95.5% and 94.7% respectively. We had 5 facilities that had a market share over 90% on an average weekday. That's the Henry Hudson, the 2 tunnels, Marine Parkway, and Verrazano Narrows bridges. 24,396 EasyPass accounts were opened in March. This concludes the report on EasyPass. If there are no questions.
Andrew?
When we have more of ORT under our belts, several months worth, maybe we should have a monthly report of how the collections are coming in for the tag readers as opposed to those that actually had an EasyPass.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Do we have any experience on the Henry Hudson at this point? How are those coming in?
I don't have any information.
Both tunnels are looking very much like the Henry Hudson. So essentially ultimately we're collecting around 2/3 of the tolls by mail transactions there. But there's a lag, so it's still a little early for the tunnels to make a call.
For the tunnels, yes.
But the preliminary results we're seeing are very similar to the Henry Hudson.
So after so many months of non-payment, the state motor vehicle bureau would send out something to the owner of the vehicle stating that their registration is subject to suspension pending payment.
Yeah, there's escalating intervention, and then when the registration is in fact, suspended, then that's an additional fine and requires, truing up of those back expenses.
And compliance among all states in the area are continuing, I assume, because everybody's getting EasyPass all over the place. So there will be a lot of, cooperation between states now, I would assume.
The recently adopted state budget enabled the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles to pursue agreements with other states, and those negotiations are ongoing. But we're optimistic that we can get agreements with a lot of our neighboring states for enforcement and registration.
That was the issue.
Suspension.
That was the issue we had with Connecticut, was that we did not have a joint operating agreement in that regard.
Right.
Veronica?
Tim, just to follow up on your point, which are the states that are being sought for those interstate agreements?
I think initial conversations have begun with Massachusetts and Maine, also Pennsylvania. Connecticut, as the chair noted, is a different case because they have a statutory issue around authorization for that negotiation, plus they don't charge tolls themselves. But the state is handling those negotiations. We're happy to keep the committee informed as they proceed, but we're anxious to get those agreements in place.
David?
Mention New Jersey. Sorry, David.
Ahead,
You didn't
Veronica.
mention New Jersey.
Yeah, okay. Do you know the status of New Jersey, Mildred, at all? Or Dory? I have not heard New Jersey mentioned in those conversations. Let me update on where we're at with
If you
New Jersey.
could give us an update on where that is or what the status is of that, that would be helpful. David, that was your question? Okay. Okay. All right, we're done with the EasyPass. Financial report.
Toll revenue year-to-date through March was $421.7 million, which is 0.1% or $0.39 million better than budget. Traffic year-to-date through March was 69.6 million crossings, which was 1.4% or about $1 million better than planned. Preliminary numbers for April indicate that traffic is up around 0.3% against plan, but for toll revenue, it's around 1.4% lower than budget, primarily due to a greater number of lower tolled EasyPass transactions compared to the higher tolled cash and tolls by mail transactions than initially forecasted. The report on expenses. Total expenses were $117.1 million through March, which is about $5.9 million or 4.8% lower than planned. Labor costs were 8.3% less than planned, or $6.1 million, due primarily to vacancies. Non-labor costs through March were slightly above budget by about $200,000, or 0.5%, primarily due to timing of bond issuance costs, which hit earlier in the year. Our total overtime was at about the same level as planned for the month of March, just about $3,000 higher due to the timing of capital project work that is reimbursable from the capital program. Our support to mass transit was more than $243 million in March, which is $21.6 million, or 9.8% better than planned. This concludes the financial report.
Any questions on finances? It's an interesting context. We want more people to use Easy Pass, and for everyone, we get less money.
Yes.
It's in contradiction in terms, but be that as it may. Okay, capital program.
The report on the capital program begins on page 67. In April, there were 6 commitments made in the amount of $88 million. This compares to a monthly plan calling for 17 commitments with a value of $185.6 million. Major commitments in April include HH88, Toll Plaza and Southbound Approach reconstruction for $73 million, and HH13, replacement of the facility lighting system for $10 million, both at the Henry Hudson Bridge. Year-to-date, 75 commitments totaling $277.8 million have been made, which is 52.7% of our $527.7 annual commitment plan. This compares to a planned cumulative year-to-date amount of 54 commitments with a total value of $340.5 million. One project was completed this month for $7.3 million, which was a flood mitigation project to relocate revenue equipment at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. There were 2 task level closeout in April, totaling $1.3 million. Year to date, there have been 35 task level closeout, totaling $87.8 million. Unless there are any questions, this completes the report on the capital program.
Questions? Could you just give us, for 1 minute, an update on the Verrazano construction, when we assume that will be finished?
Are you talking about the main construction on the
on the bridge?
On the upper level bridge?
Yes.
Aris, you want to come up? Aris is the Deputy Chief Engineer for the Verrazano.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The construction on the upper level of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge to add a 7th lane on the bridge is substantially completed. This work was completed earlier this year. As far as other ongoing construction at the bridge, we have other projects ongoing, including ORT at the Toll Plaza, as well as major maintenance projects ongoing on the bridge. There was also another major project on the bridge on the Brooklyn side, which was a bus HOV ramp, which was also completed earlier this year. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Procurements?
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Bajer, and I'm the Acting Chief Procurement Officer. Procurement start on page 83. There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications. There are 7 competitive procurement actions this month in the amount of $26.463 million. One is a competitively solicited personal service contract, a study for project TN55, replacement of the Bronx and Queens approach viaducts, and structural rehabilitation to develop a master plan with conceptual designs for the reconstruction of the approach viaducts to improve traffic flow and safety. The negotiated amount is $8,397,955.51. Next, there are 2 service contract amendments for construction administration and inspection services, which support the implementation of open road tolling. One is for the Throgs Neck Bridge in a negotiated amount of $1,534,519. And the other is for the Bronx Whinstone Bridge in the negotiated amount of $1,197,480.44. Finally, there are 4 public work modifications. 3 are associated with architectural enhancements to transform the plazas and coordinate with open road tolling gantries. The first one is at the Hugh Carey Tunnel to fabricate, furnish, and install tower structures, as well as to fabricate light beacon fixtures for the remaining B&T facilities in the negotiated amount of $8,277,806. The second one is for the Marine Parkway and Cross Bay Bridges to fabricate and deliver tower structures in a negotiated amount of $3.5 million. And the third one is at the Queens Midtown Tunnel for building demolition and restoration and other modifications in a negotiated amount of $3,039,643.33. The last item is a modification to a small business mentoring program contract at the Queens Midtown Tunnel for additional exit wall restoration and the cleaning for the negotiated amount of $516,058.63. The total amount committed under these modifications is $18.066 million. Unless there are any questions, these procurements are described in detail in the enclosed staff summaries.
Any questions, comments on any of the procurements? If not, motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. I think we're done, unless you have something else.
Sorry, diversity report.
Oh, I'm sorry. All I have to do is turn the page. Sorry, go ahead.
Good afternoon. MTA Bridges and Tunnel first quarter diversity report begins on page 98. The workforce data, new hires, EEO complaints, and dispositions are summarized as follows. Bridges and Tunnels comprised of 1,434 employees, of which 22% are females, 55% are minorities, and 7% are veterans. The percentage of females within the Bridge and Tunnel workforce remained constant compared to their representation in the first quarter of 2016. However, the overall composition of the workforce as it relates to race and ethnicity increased by 2%. In comparison to first quarter 2016, Bridges and Tunnel decreased the number of new hires from 22 to 14. Bridges and Tunnel positively increased the diversity of its workforce. The percentage of females increased from 23% to 43%. And minorities increased from 55% to 64%. Bridge and Tunnel caseload included a total of 10 EEO complaints, citing 20 separate allegations. There are 6 internal complaints, 4 external complaints. The most frequently cited bases internally was gender, externally was race and color. Bridges and Tunnel closed out 2 EEO complaints the first quarter. There are no reported Title VI complaints. If there are no further questions, that concludes the MTA Bridges and Tunnel Diversity Report.
Any questions on the diversity report? Okay. If not, now I think we're done. Motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you all very much. No problem.